Hey Adam, welcome back.
Thanks, Jason. I appreciate you having me back again.
So Adam, I appreciate you coming back to talk about this really strange case that we have going on here. So essentially, what we have is a individual who opened a bunch of bank accounts, in his own name and the name of deceased relatives, and was funneling through a lot of money from victims essentially online that he was frauding. One of these like romance relationship type of trickery, online type of fraud schemes, and claimed over $250,000 that would essentially run through these bank accounts. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, looking for my skin in the case, the gentleman opened numerous accounts at a lot of different banks, both in, for personal accounts and for business banking accounts. Even his own family was the victim of his crimes, and by doing so, he obtained wire transfers, to have the money of over $250,000 transferred to him within 1 year's time span. So I mean, it kind of opens your eyes up to even your own family can fraud you. It's not only the third parties that could be your enemy in this case.
Well, I got a question. So obviously he's opening the early accounts, which is probably difficult for any bank to really get on top of. But what about these bank accounts he's opening for deceased relatives? Like, shouldn't a bank have some type of protocol to check that the person he's opened the bank account for is alive?
Typically, with the social security number, it should register as deceased when it's
Right.
getting pulled into the system. But these banks may not have the capabilities to do that, on site, on target. So the accounts may be open and functional until the bank catches on to what's actually going on. So it could take a little bit of time, and crimes could already be committed before these institutions realize what's actually going on.
And I think we were discussing before. I think this individual was smart in terms of going to multiple branches and really speaking to different people to open these accounts. What types of things does a bank like yours do to kind of make sure there's some collaboration between the branches so that this oversight doesn't get kind of not paid attention to?
All right, at Cambridge Savings, we really focus on knowing our customers, right? So it's easier to do with a small institution, and where we're able to kind of pick up the phone and talk to anybody within the bank. So we know most of our clients on a first name basis, at least on the retail banking side, where if something funky is going on, where me or you come up to the bank and open up an account, and we know it's not you. We're going to have a pretty good inkling that that something's wrong here. We should probably contact the authorities, or at least contact the account owner to make sure they're aware of what's going on. So it's really just focusing on knowing your clients and being aware of any fraudulent activity that may occur. It's better to be safe than sorry.
What type of liability does a bank have in terms of where if the victim's funds were essentially money laundered through a bank's account? What type of liability might a bank actually face itself in terms of these types of scams?
That's a good question. The banks obviously they're insured, but it's a case by case situation depending on who's at fault per se. At the end of the day, a crime was committed by the individual, and overall they're essentially responsible for the crime. However, there could be a time gap of when these people are getting restitution or their money back. So it could be pretty serious. The bank is taking the hit overall because that's essentially money out that the bank will never recoup. So it's a pretty sticky situation, and something that both as individuals and as institutions want to avoid. I would have to think that the real focus here would be best practices to make sure that information is safe. You or your family members, make sure you're disposing of documents correctly, making sure you're checking your personal credit scores, make sure people aren't opening accounts in your name. I just think there's a lot of proactive steps that you can take as a consumer to make sure that's not happening to you.
And then what is the rule? So he was not opening just bank accounts in his own name. Can an individual just open a bank account for another individual at a bank?
No, so I mean, this I have a feeling there's a little bit more into the story here, where there's probably some sort of identity theft or fake IDs. probably false documentations with EIN numbers if they're opening business accounts. So I have a feeling this gentleman is facing more time than just a little bit of wire fraud here.
And is there some type of red flag that goes off if there's a particular bank account that has an enormous amount of money like coming in and out in a short period of time?
Right. So usually what banks do to protect themselves within the first 90, 120 days, they put extended holds on deposits, wires, and or negotiable instruments. So, but if you're waiting, it's usually 5 to 7 days. But sometimes that the money will clear because it is coming from a reliable source. So the money is there, so it is going to go into the account. And so it's kind of tough to for you to really depend on the institution to make sure you're safe. I mean, we have our safeguard measures in place, but it really comes down to the consumer to make sure that no one has access to their information.
Yeah, and it sounds like one of the reasons why he was open multiple accounts was just try to avoid that type of detection, and also probably there was maximums that would be allowed in a particular account for a certain period of time. So in order to get to the 250,000, it seems like he was trying to kind of space it out between multiple accounts to avoid detection.
Right. I mean, typically there's currency transaction reports need to be filled out if you're over $10,000 in cash. And I think there's a small limit on negotiable instruments such as money orders and checks. So I think this is pretty well calculated to avoid detection.
Yeah, and especially where you guys are, what we say, a smaller bank, more of a community bank, that you guys know those individuals, you know exactly how much money should be coming in and out. Most of the bank accounts kind of in reflection of the type of business that they're in. But I think where it kind of got lost in translation with this possibly a much bigger bank that has a lot of different customers that they don't really have that personal relationship with, they had no idea what was going on with these bank accounts until really the Fed started investigating.
Exactly. So it really, as a consumer, you really got to think about who you want to be doing business with, and what you're looking for in your bank. Someone that's going to help you navigate these waters with fraud and everything else is going out there, or do you want to be just another account, another digit? So when you're deciding where to do business, I think that's something that consumers need to take into consideration.
Well, Adam, thank you for coming back on again. Let's talk again soon.
Sounds good, Jason. Thank you.